In this video, I'd like to talk about the math question of the day for Monday, July 31st, 2023. And with this problem, we are told that if you roll two fair six-sided dice, what is the probability that the sum is 4 or higher? And questions like these will sometimes be taught in a grade school class, maybe 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, though you might also see this in Algebra 1 or Algebra 2, depending on what schools you go to. So at this point, go ahead and pause the video, see if you can work through this on your own. And when you're ready, unpause the video and we can go through this together. Now, assuming that you have attempted the problem, let's start working through it. And we need to find the probability that the sum, when we roll the two dice, is 4 or higher. And to answer a question like this, we need to start with how probability is defined. So let me paste in a definition. And we can say that we're trying to find the probability that some event A happens, where in this case, A is the event that the sum of the two dice is 4 or higher. And the probability of that event A happening is this ratio where in the numerator, we have the number of favorable outcomes to A. So that's the number of different possibilities that the sum of the two dice is 4 or greater. And our denominator is just the total number of possible outcomes. So this also includes the total number of possibilities where the sum of the dice is not 4 or higher. And let's start with the denominator, figuring out how many total possible outcomes there are. We're rolling two different dice, and each of these have 6 possibilities. So let's say on the first dice, we roll a 1, and then on our second dice, we roll a 1. We could roll a 1 on the first one, then a 2, a 1, then a 3, a 1, a 4, a 1, a 5, and a 1 and a 6. So that's 6 different possibilities right there. And that's with the first dice starting at a 1. But we can also start the first dice at a 2. Then roll a 1 for the second run, or maybe a 2 for the second one, a 3, and so on. Now, what you can see is that each of these columns has 6 different choices, and that's with the first dice starting at a 1 or a 2, but then we can do a 3 for our starting dice, a 4, a 5, and a 6, and for each of these different starting dices, there are 6 different choices for the second dice. So we have 6 groups of 6, or in other words, 6 times 6 total possible outcomes, which would be 36. So we can start by noting that our denominator here has to be 36. There are 36 different ways that we can roll two different dice and add their numbers together. Now, out of these 36 possible choices, which of these would add up to 4 or more if we were adding the dice? So if we look at this first column, we can see that 1 and 1 and 1 and 2, those will be too low, but 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 1 and 5, and 1 and 6, these would all work. So we could start by going through each of these columns and just counting up which ones work. Though for this problem, it might just be easier to think, what are the possibilities that the sum of the two dice is not 4? We can roll a 1 and a 1. We can roll 1 for the first dice, 2 for the second dice. Or we can roll 2 for the first dice and 1 for the second dice. But these are the only 3 choices. Any other choice of rolling 2 dice will result in their sum being 4 or higher. Since if we use 3 as our starting dice, 3 paired with any number in the second one will be 4 or higher. And that would be true for 4, 5, and 6 as well. If we start with any of these as our first dice, then the sum will be at least 4 or more. So that means the first dice either has to be a 1 or a 2. And we can see when looking at those that there are only 3 choices total that have a sum that's less than 4. Now, we're concerned with the number of possibilities that end up with a sum of 4 or more. So we're thinking about it from the opposite perspective. If there's only 3 out of 36 that have a sum, we can say less than 4 but not equal to 4, then the remaining would have a sum greater than 4, namely 33 out of 36, where the sum would be greater than or equal to 4. So the number of favorable outcomes for our event that the sum of the two dice is 4 or higher would be 36, meaning that the probability that the sum of the two dice is 4 or higher, would be 33 out of 36. So this right here will be our final answer. Though another approach is you could literally just list out every different possibility. If we look at a chart of that, you can see all 36 ways of rolling the dice. You can start by rolling the first one, a 1, and then you can see that has 6 choices for the second dice. Then a first roll of a 2 and 6 more choices, a roll of a 3 and 6 more, and so on. And you can see that there are 6 groups of 6, and if you add those together, you get 36 total. And now just looking at the sum, we can see this sums to 2, this to 3, and this to 3, but everything else would be at least 4 or higher. So the number of dice that, when we roll 2 dice, have a sum greater than 4 would be 33 out of 36. So a very high probability that the sum of the dice would be 4 or greater.